is BoneCrusher, and you're watching the Art is King podcast. Cast.
This is DTM. We're sitting here outdoors in this awesome city of downtown Atlanta. I am DTM. I'm glad you can join us. This is the last episode of this season for the Artist King live stream podcast. So I hope you can hear me well. This is DTM. Follow me everywhere on the internet, Delta Tango Mike, and we're sitting out here in the middle of downtown Atlanta on Upper Alabama Street, and this is my mural out here on these columns in Atlanta Underground. There's 4 of them. They're the Aztec goddesses and gods. It is the first time that I get to have some artwork out here in the city of Atlanta. I've been drawing and painting a lot for a long time, and this is finally getting to the point where you're gonna see more of that Azteca Moderno. All right, so stop on by, take pictures, tag me, Delta Tango Mike, and share with the world. All right, so now we're gonna talk about the artist who is here to meet with us today. He is on a world tour. He just went out of town recently,
right.
And he is the awesome creator and of an awesome comic, an awesome story, really. And so we're gonna get to him in a minute. I do want to point out that I want you to go to artistking.org/events. Check out all the events and workshops and classes that are coming up for artists. The mission of Artist King is to bridge the gap between the creative person and the art business. You have to learn how to run your art business, you have to learn how to manage your creative career. All right? So that's check that out, artistking.org. I also want you to check out Post Office Co-working. It is a coffee shop out here. They serve awesome coffees, and they give you access to the internet. You can set up and work, draw, whatever it is you want to do. They have private offices and desks so that you can sit down and work on. All right, so check them out. All right, so hopefully this stream is going well out there. If not, I'm gonna have to do something about it. Let's see. I still got my backups and we are live. All right, cool. So this is DTM. Let me give you a shout out to my sponsors, and then we'll be back. We are looking at the main man himself right now, Mr. Keef Cross. How you doing, sir?
Doing well, man. How you doing?
Not too bad, not too bad. Tell us about, I say your name already, Keef Cross. Tell us where you're from.
Originally, I'm from Gary, Indiana, but my mother moved here with me when I was about 1 or 2 years old, so I'm basically consider myself from Atlanta. Okay. I don't really have that southern drawl, though, so I think I still got that Midwest accent from my mother, but raised in Atlanta, definitely.
Okay. Born in Gary, Indiana, huh?
Gary, Indiana. That's where all my family.
Do you go back often? The family?
Not really. Not as often as I should. After my father passed, I hadn't been there a while after that, man. You know, I still got a bunch of family, but I think we're planning a family reunion soon, so I'll be back
all
there.
The crossies?
All the crosses.
Crosleys?
Crosses. All the crosses.
All right, cool. So tell us a little bit about you growing up. When is the first time that you remember being creative or drawing something?
Man, well, the thing about it is, when I was in high school, even in middle school, I was always creative, but I didn't really know that I could draw yet. So I used to trace a lot. I used to trace everything, and I used to tell people that I drew it, like, you know, all the time. And there was always this girl at the school I went to. She was always so good, man, and I always wanted to be like better than her. So I would just trace everything. But it wasn't until my grandfather, who was an actual artist, he just asked me, he was like, have you ever tried to actually draw something? I was like, no, I haven't. He was like, well, why don't you just try to draw something yourself? And I took a Marvel comic book, an X-Men comic book. It was an X-Men with Wolverine fighting the Mandarin on the cover, if anybody knows.
Okay.
And I sat down and drew it, and damn it, I was fucking drawing. Like, I was drawing like, I was like, holy shit.
You set your mind to it and you were doing it.
And I was doing it. And I didn't even know I could do it, but I tried. And I was like, holy shit, I can draw. You know what I'm saying? So thank you, Granddad. And then after that, that was a wrap. Like, as soon as my mom got wind of it, she was on it, taking me everywhere that had art in the title, keeping my drawings in her trunk. Whenever she met somebody that could draw, she would pull it out and show it to them. And that's really the way I got into tattooing, because she did that to a tattoo artist, and he saw my work and offered me an apprenticeship.
Okay, and that was here in Atlanta then?
Yeah, that was here in Atlanta. I was probably about, I don't know, maybe 20 years old, just fresh out of art school.
Okay, so what school did you go to?
I attended high school. I got to say, my high school, Tri-Cities Visual and Performing Arts Magnet, a huge reason of who I am right now. And after that, I went to the Columbus College of Art and Design in Columbus, Ohio. I was there for about 3 years. I didn't graduate, but I was done.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? I was done. But see, that's what happens when you go to school. That's what happens when you go to art school and you drop all your academic classes, and your senior year, you got nothing but academics. So I was like, I'm good, I'm good. Plus, I had my daughter who is 19 now. Okay. So I was go ahead. Let me come on back to Atlanta.
So when you were in high school, when you realized that you wanted to have a career in art, you already you started looking for schools, and so that's why you went to college and chose those schools, right?
Yeah. Well, I wasn't that great of a student, and as soon as I heard about college prep, I think it was either college prep or vocational, one of those. I realized I didn't have to have the greatest grades to go to school, and they told me I can go to art school. I just was like, perfect. Because I didn't want to go to college and just do the same thing I was doing now, barely passing, pretty much passing because I was doing extracurricular stuff for my teachers, designing their bulletin boards, which was really getting me by. But yeah, man, as soon as I found out I can go to art school, I applied and I got a scholarship to Savannah College of Art, and I got one to Columbus. But I went to Savannah just to visit, and it was just so, like, this town looked so slavey. Like, it had the little cobblestone and the auction blocks were still. And I was like, I'm gonna be drunk one night coming home and I'm gonna see some ghosts of some slaves walking down the street. So I was like, I don't really like it. So I ended up going to Columbus. And plus at that time, I just wanted to get away from Georgia and just kind of do something totally different anyway. So.
Did you have the idea of the kind of art that you wanted to do? Did you have projects in your mind? Did you have a job idea in your mind? What was going through?
I thought I was going to figure that out when I got to school.
Okay.
I had no idea. All I know is I wanted to get away from home, and I wanted to be on my own, and I wanted to draw. And I figured I'd figure out what I was going to do when I got there. And when I got there, I didn't even, when I got there, I majored in film because I wanted to be a filmmaker initially. That proved to be very expensive, especially with materials and
because you need
photo paper, dark rooms, and all that stuff. All that stuff was really costly. So the trial and error process was real costly. So then
before smartphones and stuff, right?
All of that. This is like I heard about the internet, but the only thing people were doing was checking their emails that I knew about. Nothing serious. I was like, what is the internet? And so then I just settled in illustration. I actually took a comic book class, but at the time I wasn't interested in being a comic book artist, so I didn't pay attention to anything. I was just in there. And it's just ironic that years later I decided to do a comic book. So even when I was sitting down to do Day Black, it came out the way it came out because a lot of people say it's unique on how I did it, but it's really because I forgot everything I was supposed to learn in that class. I didn't pay attention. So I did it the way I wanted to do it because I didn't really have those bindings in my head of what a comic book should be really tying me down, which in today's world, comic books are whatever you make them nowadays.
Right,
it's not really a standard, format anymore anyway, so it worked out.
So you're in school, you want to be a filmmaker, you decide that that's too expensive, you take on plenty of classes, and then you say you're done.
I'm done.
And then you're here in Atlanta, and you're given an apprenticeship.
Yes.
At a tattoo shop.
At a tattoo shop. The name of the shop was Alien Touch Tattoo. It was in the flea market. I am not so proud to say. I don't care.
How you started. So what?
Yeah. At the time, I wasn't really. Interested in tattoos. Really, I was just looking for a job in art.
That had to do with art.
And I got offered this apprenticeship. Just basically, it fell on my lap. And in retrospect, I wish I had. Like today, it's different. Like today, tattooing is such an art form that people know that you're going to seek out an artist that you respect. You're going to get tattoos by him. Like it's a process. I didn't go through that process, which in turn I feel like I've suffered as a tattoo artist in the long run. Like I wish I had, because the guy that taught me how to tattoo, he was an immigrant from Romania. He taught himself how to tattoo from watching the DVD. His name was Mario Neumeier, and he taught me what he knew. And of course, my own natural talent took me to a higher level, but not as high as I could have gone if I had actually linked up with somebody that was a true artist. You know what I'm saying? That's something I kind of regret in retrospect, but everything happens for a reason.
Yeah. Well, you can always wish for more or better or different.
Right.
But when we look at your art, you have a very distinct style.
Thank you.
So I don't know if we wanted you to do the things that normal people do and normal artists do, or the normal process, because then that would, I don't know where that style would have ended up in. You know what I mean? I don't know. That's my answer. So all right.
I mean, not to say I'm not a good tattoo artist. I'm good. You know what I'm saying? I'm good. I just think, but like I said, everything happens for a reason.
Yeah. So tell us about your art style when did you see that coming out of you? When did you feel that, you know what, I like all this, like you mentioned earlier before we started, cross hatching.
Right.
And you do have a lot of line work in there.
Yes.
And when you did my tattoo on my leg, I knew it was going to be nothing but lines.
Right.
And no end in sight for that. So tell us a little bit about what was it, what were your influences that helped you build your talent to the point where you found your style, and this happens to be your style?
Well, one of my biggest influences was this comic artist named Barry Windsor Smith, who, if you know his work, you know he used a lot of hatching.
Yep.
I'm not going to say that was a direct reason why I did it. It's just that, because before, a lot of my stuff was just really stark black and white. And my backgrounds were black and white, and I was finding that I was having trouble making the foreground pop from the background because everything was one tone. So I just started playing around with hatching, because when I did pen and ink drawings, like realistic drawings, I would always use cross hatching. So I just pretty much figured out a way to implement it into a cartoon style, which just gave the pieces a little bit more movement while keeping everything still pretty simple, and simple yet intricate at the same time. So it's just one of those things that it just kind of evolved. I can't really say when it happened or why, but my major influence is definitely Barry Windsor Smith, Ralph Bakshi, Wendy Penny with ElfQuest Comics was a huge influence. Brother Man Comics, my man Dawood. Dawood, and man, it's so many names.
And he keeps complicated. Dawood, like that art just looks complicated, like a lot of information in one place.
He is so good, man. He is just so good.
And you can still see what it is.
Even his storyboards, like he posted the other day a storyboard he did, and the storyboard was like, geez, I'm used to like thumbnail sketches, and the storyboards are like fully realized illustrations. Like he is the god, man. He is definitely one of the guys, along with yourself.
Oh, thank you.
Along with yourself, man. Y'all are incredible, man.
I'll take my compliments wherever I can get them.
Y'all are incredible, man. Y'all are definitely inspirations, man.
Thank you. So, so when you fell into your style, were you already tattooing? Was that before?
No, it was definitely tattooing and my style kind of evolved together, especially the style with Day Black. I was always painting, but you know, during the slow seasons, being in a shop, it just really came out of boredom, just kind of trying to pass the time. And because a lot of people say when they look at Day Black, it feels like it's tattoo art, or it feels tattooy, which I don't personally see at all when I look at it, but maybe just because I'm so close to it, I don't really notice it. But as soon as people see it immediately, they're like, this looks like tattoo designs, you know? So I'm definitely sure it all came together like that, you know, just from doing Flash and constantly every day. And of course, when you sit down and draw, it's going to bleed through to your own work, you know?
And even when you paint, it's there.
Even when I paint, it's there. I think it's probably, I think because as far as composition goes, because when you do a tattoo, you're thinking about what's going to look good on the body, what's going to be, it's different than creating a piece of art, which could be abstract and it could just be whichever you want. When you're doing a tattoo, it has to kind of fit a parameter most times to look good on somebody. So whenever I paint something or I draw, I approach it that way, like, how is this composition going to fit on this page? Like, how is it going to look from afar? How is it going to look from this far away? Or all that stuff kind of goes into play with it, you know?
So you're a tattoo artist, you have your own personal kind of artwork because you wanted to be a filmmaker.
Yes.
Did you already have film ideas?
I did. I definitely had film ideas. I saw Pulp Fiction. When I saw Pulp Fiction, that was a turning point in the way I view movies. That was like, when I saw that, I was like, I want to be a filmmaker. Like, for real, when I went to the movies, I was like, it was like a light switch clicked on, like, this is what I want to do. And, but even now, even like when I draw, I approach it to the same way somebody would map out a scene. You know what I'm saying? Like when I write my scripts, I might put pan left, pan right, like literally like a screenplay, because I read a lot of screenplays when I was studying, like screenplays from like Kevin Smith, of course, Quentin Tarantino, David Fincher, like just a lot of people.
You got into it.
Yeah. David Lynch, just a lot of people that I respect. Jim Jarmusch. So I can go on, man. All the little indie art house filmmakers. I was into all of that, you know.
So you have film ideas, and one of those was Day Black, or was that a comic book idea? Like where did it first start?
Well, Day Black, it was definitely not a comic book. It wasn't a film idea initially, but I just started seeing the trend. Like if it was a comic book first, it's eventually going to be a movie. And I just felt like the movies since I always wanted to make a film, this was the closest way for me to get it realized. And these really started out as storyboards, like big storyboards for my movie. And for the movie we shot, we ended up using a lot of it, of the first draft of the book, as one big storyboard. We just looked at a page and just flipped through it and shot it. So, and I definitely have plans to bring it to the big screen, because I just feel like it's just going to have more life and more potential for longevity that way. Not to say that it won't with this, but you know, I don't know how long I'm going to be drawing. You know what I'm saying? I don't know how. You know, even with health situations, man, you never know how long you got these hands, man. You know what I'm saying? So I just want to have a plan B just in case it doesn't work out. You know.
So the first thought was the film or something that you can shoot, and so then what pushed you to start telling the story in the comic book?
Well, it actually started when I was in college. I was going through a portfolio day, and there was this lady. She was from Bulgaria or something, and her artwork looked really similar to what I do now. It's like it was real black and white. It was real, really sharp contrast. And she looked at my work, which was kind of on that. It was starting to be like that. And she said, and keep in mind, I can't remember her name, but her work was so good, and I loved her so much, but I can't remember her name. So how much did I love her, right? But she was like, you really need to think about doing sequential art. Like, that's your strong point. That's what you need to be doing. And like 10 years later is when I actually remembered that and started to actually do it.
10 years later?
10 years later. You know what I'm saying? Just out of sheer boredom. Just out of being in the shop, meeting all these crazy characters. Actually, right around here at 5 Points Mall. That's the first shop I worked at. Dealing with all these people and these crazy stories and just people pissing me off. So in the comic book, I got a chance to say things that I couldn't necessarily say to my customers, because at first it started out just like a comic strip. I was drawing this guy, and
Merce was there.
Merce was there. He was there, man. You know what I'm saying? And he would just go into these characters, or he wasn't even a vampire at that point. He was just a guy that was doing tattoos and he was snapping people, talking shit back to the customers. Yeah, like, really, why do you want to get this, man? This is so stupid. Why do you want to get? Like, he would say this stuff to them, you know. So it was therapeutic, man. You know? It was definitely therapeutic.
So and then and out of the every day, you started finding characters that you wanted to keep. In this, and so when did he turn into vampire, and when did this place called Day Black show up? How did this happen?
It's strange. I was watching well, the whole aspect with him being a slave came from watching the movie Interview with a Vampire. And I don't know if you guys remember, but there was a scene where Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt, they were like in the South, and they were living on this plantation, and they were feeding off of the slave women. And then eventually all the slaves revolted against them because they knew they were evil, and they had to end up running out of there. And so in the back of my mind, I was like, damn, there's a story right there, like, especially in that aspect, like what happened to the slaves that got bitten, you know? So that's where that came from. The whole blood aspect just came from me dealing with blood, being a tattoo artist, which in itself at the time was a subculture. Right now it's pretty mainstream. But back then it was kind of like, you were a tattoo artist, you were a little mysterious, you were a little like, you know. So you take all that stuff in an artist's brain, it just kind of blenders up in there and just kind of, and it just kind of comes out. It just comes out, man. You know, that subconscious stuff just comes out. And yeah, that's it, man. I really don't know. I can't say exactly when it happened, but it's just like when you're a storyteller and you start writing, things just start to begin to answer their own questions. Like the story just kind of unfolds for you, instead of you really premeditating. Like a lot of this stuff was just really organic, and then when you know your characters, they tend to tell you where they're going to go and where their story is going to end up going, and that's what happened with this. You know?
So you started writing documents and thinking about what Merce going through that day and the people around him.
Yeah, definitely.
You didn't do this whole no cards and thinking of the whole art.
No, because at the time I was really just. I mean, I used to write as a kid. I would write a little bit, but I never considered myself to be a writer. And initially, with the first draft of Day Black, it was really, I was depending on art. Like, okay, I could draw. This is going to be a hit because the pictures look good. But then I started to send them to comic book publishers, and I would get rejection letters because they were like, this looks nice, but it's not really that strong. And they were right. You know what I'm saying? They were absolutely right, because the story was like not good. It was just kind of thrown together, half cooked. And it wasn't until I got those rejection letters that I started to actually go back and refine and focus on my writing, a skill that I didn't really nurture as much because I was so heavily into the art.
What you do to nurture it? What are the steps?
I really just took my time. I didn't draw anything, and I just wrote. You know what I'm saying? I just really spent time.
Focus on the words.
Focus on the words, because usually I would draw, and even to this day I do this. Like if I have writer's block, I'll draw, and then whatever that picture comes out, I was like, this looks good. I'm gonna best base a story around it. And that's about 75% of Day Black. I'm gonna draw something cool, and then
you're inspired.
Yeah, and also that's another reason that like all of the dream sequences. If anybody's read it, they know he has these dream sequences, and they're really weird and bizarre sometimes. And that's just me drawing and figuring out what can I do with these drawings. Okay, he's gonna be narcoleptic, but actually, you know where the narcolepsy came from? I don't know if you remember. There was this guy named Rhino. Back in the day, he was a big guy, but he used to fall asleep doing tattoos.
Really?
And then we would come, and the customers would come to me to get them covered up because there would be like a tattoo, and then you see a line that kind of faded off, like where he just
what?
And this was real, so I definitely took that and implemented that in Day Black because that was just too wild. That was too wild. Like imagine somebody like 400 or 500 pounds with a needle falling asleep on your arm.
Get him up.
Crazy, man, crazy.
Wow, some real life.
Yeah.
So you focus on the writing, and so far, how much of the story have you written as compared to what you've already published?
I'm not gonna lie, man. I do it issue by issue. Like I don't write it all out and then just.
No, but do you have an idea of what?
I definitely have. I know exactly how it ends. But sometimes it's like when you're writing stuff and you're drawing it. Sometimes you write too big for your britches. Like how the fuck am I gonna draw this? You know what I'm saying? Like this is really.
You start explaining the crowd.
Yeah. And it's like, this guy got to fight off 100 vampires, and I'm like, I don't really draw fight scenes like that, but I had to teach myself to do it. You know, like. Because it's like you want to play to your strengths, but at the same time, you don't want to make it too easy for yourself, and you want to challenge yourself as an artist, you know?
I think what you just said right there is some great advice, that you want to play to your strengths.
Yeah.
And I think that from my experiences trying to do my comic book and trying to go through my comic book ideas, is that you get caught up trying to follow all the rules.
Right.
Trying to go through all the proper process.
Yeah.
And then you get stuck because it's so much work to get to the drawing page.
Yeah, exactly.
And and you need to focus on the things that you're strong on, like you say, and let that carry you to the next step.
Exactly.
And then work your way through it. Like
and the reason I've had the success I've had is because I didn't follow any rules. I literally did it the way I wanted to. You know what I'm saying? Because if it couldn't be the way I wanted to do it, if it couldn't be fun, I didn't want to do it, man, because that's just a regular job. That's what I was already doing. You know, like why even do this if it's not fun? Or if I can't do it the way I want to do it. You know?
And you know, one of the things that I did see when you were drawing, some of the drawings that I've seen you do for the comic book, they're just on regular piece of paper.
Right.
Like you're just using your sketchbook and drawing.
Yeah.
And whereas a lot of artists are like, it has to be the 11 by 17 comic book size paper.
Yeah,
It has to be, you know, the pencils, the inks, and this and that, and that may also hinder you in that process.
Right.
And then there's lots of artists who say, well, I'll get started when I can afford this or when I can afford that. And it's like, it's as simple as paper and pencils.
Yeah, either you want to do it or you don't. You know, and comic books are one of those businesses that you have to draw, man. There's no getting around it. If you want to do it, I mean, there's shortcuts, of course, but basically you have to. I mean, you got to do it. There's no shortcuts.
Right.
There's no shortcuts, man. None at all.
It's not gonna get done until you do it.
Exactly.
Anyway,
exactly. Everything I draw, I did in my sketchbook.
Right.
I'll piece everything together in Photoshop. I'll make my panels, all that in Photoshop. Sometimes I do get the pages and I do them traditionally just to try it out. But you know, either way works for me, man.
Yeah.
You know?
And you know, when I think of those 11 by 17 sheets, but then you look at the like John Byrne and all these other artists in the past, like they cut and pasted actual piece of paper.
Exactly, to get those textures and everything. Yeah.
So you know, it's too much. All right, so tell us a little bit about what's in Day Black's story. Who are the characters, and what is it that we're following? What is it that's happening from book 1 to book 2?
Okay, well,
we can see the books right now.
Yeah, roughly this is, you see it?
Let's see, here we go, yep.
Yeah, this is Day Black, my book. This is Merce, the main character.
Okay.
And he is basically, he started out as a slave. He gets bitten by a vampire in the cotton fields. Fast forward to present day, he works as a tattoo artist with a modified tattoo machine that sucks blood as it gives ink. And really, it started out as being because of like things like HIV and like these diseases that were put into the
Put it on
world.
the table so we can see.
Yeah, that were put into the world to basically destroy vampires. So he had to find a way to survive without, you know, necessarily biting people, because it's pretty much like having sex without a condom nowadays for vampires.
Right.
So
you never know who's dirty.
you never know, man. You never know. So the tattoo machine works as kind of a dialysis machine. Which I pretty much have tied in since, you know, my recent, you know, things with that. So, which cleans the blood, and he can screen it, and he can keep these same customers knowing that they have this clean blood. You know what I'm saying?
Nice.
So initially, the first book is basically just introducing Dave Black to the world he lives in, his dissatisfaction with being a vampire that lives forever because he's pretty much bored at life right now. Likening it to playing a video game with all the cheat codes, pretty much. So he's just at a point in his life where he's kind of having a midlife crisis and just wants something new. And the next chapter along comes his brother and his ex-girlfriend, who he thought were long dead, but they actually pop up being fully alive as vampires to torment him and pretty much give him some clues as to why he's having problems adapting to vampire life, which there is a certain reason for that.
And we're gonna find those reasons later.
We will find these reasons. Now this is volume 1, which is issues 1 through 3. Volume 2, issues 4 through 6. This is the most recent one, issue number 7, and this is his mother, LaRue, on the cover. The woman, I don't want to tell you all that, but this is his mother, and we delve into her background back as a slave concubine in the South, New Orleans. So this is also a very interesting issue, controversial, not like really any of these, because it's more, I'd say a little more tragic, but definitely an interesting read. Kind of like a cross between what's the name? Angel Heart or Serpent in the Rainbow. Just that type of voodoo-ish kind of, you know.
Yeah, that Angel Heart was crazy.
Even Beloved, it's a little bit of Beloved in there, you know. So,
so I know that at the end of the second book, she shows up.
Yeah.
So we're about to find out what's going on there.
Yes.
Also noticed that I think it was the second book that the guy was shooting people.
That was Kubrick.
That showed up on the film.
That was Kubrick. That was Kubrick, the man that is tired of the saggy pants syndrome. And he took it to himself to get on top of roof buildings and start sniping guys in their butts. And their exposed butt cheeks.
Right.
So, and you know, that was a personal frustration of mine that I just chose to put in. I was just tired of looking at butt cleavage every day.
So, and that's just something that is put in there. It's not necessarily a whole storyline that's going to follow.
It's just something I wanted to say. It's just
to break up the monotony.
Yeah, to break it up and also introduce characters. You know what I'm saying? And just, you know, and when you're world building, man, it's like you're playing God. You can really control who you want to be in this world. These are the type of people that I wish lived in the world today. Like, somebody please take to the rooftops and do this. I'm encouraging it, man. Let's get some copycats out there.
And then there are Mexicans in the book, and that's crazy.
They are Mexicans. The way I used Mexicans in this book was, you know, because they really get a bad rap in this country, man, and they don't get a lot of respect, wrongfully so. And what I wanted to do is to empower them in a way to where they're really our savior. So in Dave Black, all the vampire hunters in the world are Mexican descent. Like, that's just the way it is. That's just how they are. It started in Mexico, but America has such an infestation of vampires. They immigrate here seemingly to do these jobs, but they're really here to work in the exterminator.
Right. We think that they're doing the field work, which they are, but then they're undercover. They're doing they're shutting down the vampires.
Exactly.
And they're coming to Dave Black.
They're coming, and the lead vampire hunter, his name is Radamez, and he's the baddest one out of all of them.
Yeah.
And his story is very interesting. He's actually the adopted son of Merce. But you got to check the book out, man.
I love it. I love that storyline of that the adopted kid.
Yeah.
Because it also recently, you know, Jean-Claude Van Damme did what is it? A series, and up somewhere, and it includes that one of his henchmen is a kid who was in some orphanage in South America somewhere, and he ended up working in TV and film. And
see, it's too close, man.
Right, it's a little close. And but he's a killer, like he's cold-blooded killer,
Right,
like he's just nasty. But he has like this little dude, you know, who's from South America somewhere, and getting crapped on. But in reality, that dude is crazy.
Yeah, and that's cool. And with Radamez, the way his arc is going to play out, he's probably the most important character in the book, man. Like there's something about him that nobody really knows. He doesn't even know about himself. That's going to come to light. It's going to pretty much change everything.
So I have one last question for you.
All right.
When is my character gonna come out? Because you already drew.
I already drew it, right?
And
it got edited out.
And it was in the film.
It got edited out, man. I had it in the issue, but a lot of my stuff gets edited. Like at the time, my editor Bill was like, you know, some stuff I just couldn't put in there. It just didn't make sense to the story.
Right. Okay.
So it's gonna make it in there, man.
Right.
Because right now, Mercy's kind of going on a journey now to where it's taking him out of the tattoo shop. You know what I'm saying? So I'm gonna get him back in there for a few more issues, because I think the first arc of the book is gonna be maybe 10 to 12 issues. So we're at issue number 7 now. So I'm gonna start wrapping it up soon, because I have another story that I can't wait to get started on. So, but yeah, you're gonna get in there. Man.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well, I do one last thing. A comment on Dave Black and the way you did doing the story is that I like that you did not start with the origin from the beginning.
Right.
Like just put him out there.
Yeah.
Do his thing and let us know what that's like.
Right, and that's something also that I learned from my editor, because initially I was about to tell the whole story in like 2 issues. But he was like, you can't do that. You got to make this something that's going to have longevity, which also made me a stronger writer, because I had to focus on secondary characters. I had to focus on these scenarios. I had the world build for Dave Black. Like I just had to stretch it out a little bit longer. So that actually ended up helping me. You know?
Okay. All right. So we're gonna go into the last 2 questions of the day.
All right.
Number 1 is where do we find you online, and where can we buy the book?
Okay. You can find me at Keef Cross. All my social media is Keef Cross, KeefCross. You can get Dave Black in print form. Currently, you can get it at print form at peepgamecomics.com. You could also get prints of issue number 7, the most recent issue. And you can get PDF versions of all of the issues on my page, DaveBlackComic.com.
DaveBlackComic.com. All right.
Yes, which Dan is constructing and totally responsible for creating.
All responsible.
Yeah.
All right. So and then now the actual last question for today. Everybody, pay attention. Share some wisdom that you would give yourself. That you would give your self of 10 years ago. If you could go back 10 years to see Keef Cross 10 years ago, what is some artistic, creative advice you would give?
Man, that's a good one. Well, like I said earlier, as far as the tattooing goes, I've been tattooing 18 years. So if I had to take 10 years back, I would definitely have sought out a master artist for that, you know what I'm saying? But as far as Dave Black goes, I definitely would have paid attention in my comic book design class. I don't know how it would have come out if I had. It might have been a totally different type of book then. But at the same time, I'm also a firm believer of everything works out the way it should. So I think if I did go back and change anything, I might not even be talking to you right now. You know what I'm saying? So no, that's it, man. I don't really have any. Yeah, I'm glad everything worked out like that.
That's good. That's good enough for me.
Okay.
That's good enough for me. Well, you heard from Keef Cross. You found out about Dave Black. This will not be the last time you hear about Dave Black on social media this way. We're going to start another program real soon in the next month or 2. And I am bringing in storytellers to tell their story, to tell you about their characters, to tell you about where their creativity flows from. And it's going to be a series so that we can focus on different aspects of their creativity, not just how they can draw, but how they think, how they create, how they're inspired, and how we can also get involved by supporting our community. So that'll be the next series that we start up real soon with Artist King. This is DTM. We're at Post Office. Check out artistking.org/events for workshops and classes. This video is on Facebook right now, but it is also going to go on YouTube. So check out the Art is King channel on YouTube and check us out on iTunes. Art is King. This is DTM. I'll talk to you later. And we're out.
All right.